fascinating that they're willing to infiltrate the world of puppets in order to convey messages about a decision that I think is, as yet, not totally underwritten with scientific data.
Yes, it is. Holy shit, it is. At a certain point in the United States, 99.5% of the people who were dying from COVID-19 were unvaccinated. It could not be more conclusive there. 99.5% of people, even Republicans were starting to pick up on that. Like, you could even see it in Breitbart. There was an article where someone was like, if we don't actually, get on the right side of this issue, there's going to be mass death. Like, a lot of people will die from this disease because people in the right-wing circles are firmly in this, like, anti-vax camp. Okay, I think it's time for the boron, Elmo. If you haven't heard, Russell Brand is going to debate ELMO of Sesame Street, and it's going to be a bloodbath, an absolute bloodbath.
I was getting vaccinated on television. Has entertainment become propaganda? We're going to answer that today. Today's episode is brought to you by the letters P and Pfizer.
Oh, Elmo's going to destroy him, okay? He's like the consummate debate bro. You just wait.
Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now and turn that notification bell on, please. We need you to know about our daily video.
Okay, Jesus, calm down.
Just like Elmo.
You were super duper today, getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
Yeah, there was a little pinch, but it was okay.
Oh, God. The propaganda. Holy shit.
Elmo is gonna get COVID. I mean, and he's like made out of fabric.
Elmo was really glad to have Daddy and...
Have you never seen Sesame Street before, Russell? Did you know the purpose of Sesame Street? Do you know what this is supposed to do? It's supposed to educate people, especially people who might not have access to that same information. It was like an actually incredibly based pilot project that's supposed to educate children and further their understanding of the world.
Baby David there with him. Baby David, where are you?
I had a lot of questions about Elmo getting the COVID vaccine.
That bit's actually talking to adults, isn't it? Because a child isn't in that position. A child's like, we're going to doctors, you're getting this thing, we'll tell you about it on the way home. Like, that bit that's manipulating an adult.
I learned that Elmo getting vaccinated is the best way to keep himself, our friends, neighbors, and everyone else healthy and enjoying the thing.
What is the problem with this? Like, unless you are some kind of weird anti-vaxxer, I don't see what you would see a problem in this. Like, I don't understand.
Things they love.
If you're taking your advice from this, like, I think it's all right when they're trying to teach you the alphabet and the 1, 2, 3, all that was good. But when it starts getting into complex territory that involves the power of the state, the influence of pharmaceutical companies.
You don't care about those issues, Russell. You're just a weird anti-vaxxer, okay? Like, overwhelmingly, the scientific community has stated that this is going to be an effective way at both lowering the time that you spend in a hospital or even getting sick from COVID in general. It prevents some people from ever having to experience symptoms related to COVID. It is, on a mass production scale, a much cheaper option than filling up hospitals with people who are suffering from COVID or from any of the super expensive celebrity cures for this kind of stuff like monoclonal antibodies, which not everyone has $6,000 to drop on getting done as a treatment from all this kind of stuff. Like, broadly speaking, a mass vaccination campaign for everyone to get vaccinated would have a lot more benefits than it would have downfalls to society. It is a good thing. You can hate the pharmaceutical industry as I do, and you can critique the pharmaceutical industry as I do for a variety of reasons, but simply saying because this product was made by Big Pharma, therefore bad, is ridiculous. Like, Sesame Street, the cartoon show, knows more about this than you. The puppet show, sorry. Muppet show, sorry. Oof, wow. Don't come after me, all right? I'm on your side, S-Hive.
The impact of coronavirus on young children. These are not issues I want resolved by members of Elmo's fucking family. I'm going to take Mr. Snuffleupagus' advice on gun control, Big Bird on polygamy. You can't have that conversation at the level of puppetry, unless the entire media is puppets, man. Puppets of the farm.
Jesus Christ. They're not asking the kids to understand or explain to them, the process behind creating a life-saving, in some cases, vaccine. They're trying to get more kids to realize that it is a safe procedure that can most likely have a lot of positive benefits, outweighing the problems that come associated with it.
Pharmaceutical industry.
Elmo and baby David have a question. Can we have a hug?
Oh, come here, son.
We've had an interesting 2 to 3 year journey around coronavirus. New information has come to light. The involvement of pharmaceutical companies, the efficacy of lockdowns, the controversies around the anti-vax movement, the blaming of people that haven't been vaccinated, the conversation about natural immunity, the complexity of allowing companies like Pfizer and Moderna to get such profits when they have such colourful, indeed checkered histories. This is a difficult...
This is the wild thing about, like, this new push towards the, I mean, he's, the enlightened centrist, I guess, libertarian, doesn't like political labels kind of view, but all the anti-vax crowd, and there was an overlap with, the clown shoes left. Jimmy Dore was basically, his entire channel turned into this whole, it's not anti-vax, okay? It's not anti-vax, I'm just asking questions. This is kind of anti-vax light. Why don't we ever talk about the people who get blood clots, for example? Why isn't that brought up in the mainstream media? And I was like, it fucking is. It's all over the mainstream media, to a fault, I would say. If you're talking about something that is going to be used by millions and millions of people, statistically, any medicine is going to have complications, and some of those people in that pool are going to have negative effects from that. That doesn't mean that you should stop taking the medicine or stop taking a vaccine if it has, broadly speaking, a lot more benefits both to you and to society. Cool. And that's like, there's this overlap, like, as if, like, we're supposed to hate the same things. If he's like, here's the problem with BlackRock, and it's like, oh, what's the problem with BlackRock? Is it the fact that they're buying up, like, all of this private property, and then they're going to be leasing it out to people, and they're buying more and more of it, and that's really, really scary. A single corporation shouldn't have the ability to do that. A hedge fund shouldn't have the ability to do that. It's like, nah, none of that. Bill Gates, something. And you're like, what?
Complex conversation that should be carried out between medical professionals and individuals, families and communities, and of course Elmo.
Elmo loves you, Daddy.
I love you too.
One of the unfortunate things about this story is I find myself agreeing, at least temporarily, with Senator Ted Cruz, who to me looks like he could be on Sesame Street.
Funny that. Weird, isn't it? And you always say about how all your fans on YouTube seem to really love Donald Trump. You keep bringing it up. You're like, I didn't love him, but I know you do. Why is that? Why do you think that is? I don't think he knows the history of Sesame Street. The show's format consists of a combination of commercial television production elements and techniques which evolved to reflect the changes in American culture and audiences' viewing habits. It was the first children's TV show to use educational goals and a curriculum to shape its content, and it was the first show whose educational effects were formally studied. Its format and content have undergone significant changes to reflect the change to its curriculum. Shortly after its creation, its producers developed what would be called the CTW model, after the production company's previous name, a system of planning, production, and evaluation based on collaboration between producers, writers, educators, and researchers. The show was initially funded by the government and private foundations and has become somewhat of self-supporting due to revenues from licensing arrangements, international sales, and other media. By 2006, independently produced versions or co-productions of Sesame Street were broadcast in 20 countries. In 2001, there was over 120 million viewers of various international versions of Sesame Street. It's the 15th highest rating. Sesame Street was conceived in 1966 during discussions between television producer Joan Gans Cooney and the Carnegie Foundation Vice President Lloyd Morissette. Their goal was to create a children's television show that would master the addictive qualities of television but do something good with them, such as helping young children prepare for school. After 2 years of research, they formed the Children's Television Workshop and received a combined grant, blah, blah, blah. Emphasis on hiring women crew members, additional minorities to the cast. The success helped it grow. But basically, it started as a project, and that was to educate children on a variety of things and provide mass education at a relatively low level. I mean, the barrier for entry to be able to have Sesame Street as something that you have in your life was basically having TV and cable, something which, obviously millions and millions of Americans had. And this is not new. I know a lot of people are really, really mad when Sesame Street brings up an issue that they're not on the same side of. I guess, you might consider it this. But like lots of people got really angry when Sesame Street started talking about different forms of representation, and this happened throughout the history of the format as well. This is not a new thing. Like, you know, conservatives being really mad at Sesame Street maybe being way more progressive than they see the world as. That's been happening for a very long time. It was happening related to racial issues, and now it's happening related to trans issues, and also it seems there's now overlap with vaccination being another thing as well.
That's that vampire doing the counting.
1 bet. 2 bets.
Senator Ted Cruz shared the clip on Twitter.
And is that as far as you want the scope of their education to be? Counting to 3? Is that it? Is that, it's like, all right, let's stop there. That's what I want kids to know.
And blasted the popular PBS HBO children's show for allowing Elmo to aggressively advocate for vaccinating children under 5. He added, "You cite zero scientific evidence for this." The internet was quickly filled with comments on Cruz versus Elmo. Now there's a UFC bout I'd like to see. With one person tweeting, "I'm here for the right-wing meltdown because a puppet got vaccinated." Is it a right-wing I'm not right-wing, and I'm not having a meltdown about it either. This is what I'm saying, is have they become so desperate to indoctrinate?
See, this is a conversation we keep having because a lot of people are getting really upset that you label them as right-wing. Like, do you remember when I was debating Adam and Sitch and they kept saying, like, why do you lefties keep labeling everyone as right? You see everyone as like far right or fascists or Nazis or all that kind of stuff. I don't think they understand the Overton window shift, and I don't think they understand that, like, I'm not a right-winger, trust me, okay? I just agree with them, broadly speaking, on a lot of social issues. But then there's other things about me. I like weed. Weed is good. Weed is tight. I'm okay with weed being legal.
That they're willing to infiltrate the world of puppets in order to convey messages about a decision that I think is as yet not totally underwritten with scientific data.
Yes, it is. Holy shit, it is. At a certain point in the United States, 99.5% of the people who were dying from COVID-19 were unvaccinated. It could not be more conclusive there. 99.5% of people. Even Republicans were starting to pick up on that. Like, you could even see it in Breitbart. There was an article where someone was like, if we don't actually, you know, get on the right side of this issue, there's going to be mass death. Like, a lot of people will die from this disease because people in the right-wing circles are firmly in this, like, anti-vax camp.
Cruz, along with other Republicans, was seeking more answers from the government before the authorization of the...
Like, Jesus Christ, when you have 5 million, it's 5 million, right? He has 5 million subs, something outrageous. 5.72 million, so he's about to hit 6 million subs. You have a responsibility, Russell. I'm sorry. I know there's no editors. I know YouTube, you are the start and end of this, to do a simple Google search before you start, like, just flapping your mouth about this.
Vaccines for children in this age group. The Centers for Disease Control said in announcing its recommendation that the child vaccines have undergone the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. Have they? Are you sure about that? This isn't the...
Counterpoint. Have they? But have they? Counterpoint. Oh, that went Australian near the end.
First time Cruz has had a run-in with a high-profile Sesame Street star. That's odd, isn't it? You wouldn't want more than one in your life just because it would look stupid in an autobiography. Then the next year I got involved in another spat with another Sesame Street star. Then the next year after that I punched Kermit the Frog in his dick. But why trust...
His American wasn't bad, but he also lost it near the end. I'm going to contend.
Russ, a right-wing conspiracy theorist with skin in the game, making profit in every direction from various anti-vaccine interests. Let's instead look at what that other conspiracy theorist, Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, said in that conspiratorial rag, Newsweek. 2 weeks ago, with no outcomes data on COVID-19 booster shots for 5 to 11-year-olds, the Centers for Disease Control vigorously recommended the booster for all 24 million children in that age group. No outcomes data. Contrast the sentence. The CDC say the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, says no outcomes data on COVID-19 booster shots from 5 to 11-year-olds. The CDC cited a small Pfizer study of 140 children that showed boosters elevated their antibody levels, an outcome known to be transitory. A small study of 140 children. Is there any other motivation, though, for wanting kids to take a medicine that costs money when you're a company that needs to make money? Nothing.
See, so this is where it just kind of completely falls apart. You could be advocating for the nationalization of the pharmaceutical industry. You could be doing that on the one end. You know, take the profit motive, the corporate profit motive out of this. And then, on the other side, you would have to acknowledge the science behind this. Because at this point, it's pretty fucking clear.
Nothing. When that study concluded, a Pfizer spokesperson said it did not determine the efficacy of the booster in the 5 to 11-year-olds. But that didn't matter to the CDC, who put the matter before its own kangaroo court of curated experts, the Advisory Committee on Immunisation Practices. Committee members emphasised the importance of a universal booster message that applies to all age groups. Dr. David Kimberlin, editor of the American Academy of Pediatrics Red Book, speaking on his own behalf, said, "Americans are yearning for, are crying out for, a simpler way for looking at this pandemic." He suggests
there's a difference between states that say may and say shall.
Oh, if you missed that big story that the conservative media just loves right now, it turns out that Joe Biden is given a card before he has meetings and stuff like that with a list of points that he has to stick on, and it's them basically being like, see, he's just as old and senile as Trump, so we told you so. And is that really a huge revelation to you that someone of that age, when they are attending multiple conferences every day where the stakes are quite high, I might add, has a list of things that he has to keep in mind? Is that truly like the bombshell revelation that you all think it is?
to all the information, and you want it to be pointed out to you when something has been...
I'd want that. I'm not even 30. Yeah. Like, I too would want that. I would be like, okay, you have like 12 meetings today with a whole bunch of world leaders. It's like, okay, neat. Can I have my cards, please? I would like that at my age.
Described as having had the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. You want to be sure that that is the case and that it's not a clinical trial conducted without informed consent. There's some distance between those two realms.
There's an entire Wikipedia article on how Sesame Street does this research. In 1969, nice, the children's television show Sesame Street premiered on the National Education Television Network, which then became PBS, in the United States. Unlike earlier children's programming, the show's producers used research and over 1,000 studies and experiments to create the show and test its impact on young viewers' learning. By the end of the program's first season, Children's Television Workshop, the organization founded to oversee Sesame Street production, had developed what became the CTW model, a system of planning, production, evaluation that combined expertise of researchers and early childhood educators with that of the show's writers, producers, and directors. And by the way, ELMO, did I miss it? ELMO doesn't say I got the Pfizer or I got the Moderna, does he? At that point in the, like, let's rewatch the clip.
You were super duper today, getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
Yeah, there was a little pinch, but it was okay.
You know how we're gonna get...
Yeah, it just says your COVID-19 vaccine. That kind of flies in the face that this is like some big conspiratorial thing where like Pfizer has banded together to somehow infect children's programming to be able to sell more vaccines, or maybe all the vaccine companies banded together to get that done. You know, it has nothing to do with, broadly speaking, some kind of, I don't know, concerned health measure to help less people die, including less children die.
Focused on at-risk children rather than ubiquitously recommended. But forget Marty McCarthy. Let's get back to what Elmo's dad says.
I had a lot of questions about Elmo getting the COVID vaccine.
You're damn right there's questions. Of course there are bloody questions. There are questions about the way that PBS is funded and whether or not PBS's funding could ever be at threat if they didn't follow certain government edicts.
We live in quite a time now where, like, calling truth to power, calling out the elites is going after the public broadcasting company. And Sesame Street. And Sesame Street. But I'll die.
There are questions about the efficacy of the vaccine in that age group or the necessity for vaccines in that age group. There are all the points brilliantly raised by Marty McCarthy.
Counterpoint, Big Bird's name is Big Bird. You're right. You're right. I did not think of that. Yep. What's the agenda?
Are worthy questions.
I learned that Elmo getting vaccinated is the best way to keep himself, our friends, neighbors, and everyone else healthy and enjoying the things they love.
I like Sesame Street. I've got nothing against Sesame Street. But
Okay.
this seems to me like another example of the complex issues that coalesce around coronavirus and the treatments of coronavirus and the political responses, the sociological responses.
Just because a handful of you are scared of needles and you don't like getting pricked because you're a big prick, you don't have to then put that on the kids. You don't have to then ruin everyone else's lives. Just because you don't understand understand really how vaccines work, and maybe you were part of that kind of, you know, progressive new age movement that was really against vaccines. It was usually, you know, upper to middle class, white Americans, you know, sometimes in California, who were starting to come out and say, hey, by the way, did you know that vaccines cause autism? And then everyone was like, what? Does that have any basis in reality? And the truth was, no, it does not. It's actually just a conspiracy theory. But then you start a whole little movement, and then suddenly there's all these upticks in things like measles, things that, you know, we used to kind of vaccinate and not have to worry about, but now they're just popping up in these communities. Great stuff. Great stuff. So again, if you're not willing to do just a little due diligence and look into it, then why you got to ruin everyone else's lives? That's it, you know? This is the vaccine equivalent of the sexual Puritans we were just watching. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jester, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.